Our good friend JC Shurburtt of Inside the Gamecocks, the Big Spur, joins us. JC, what's going on, my friend? How are you?
Hey, great to be with you today, Chris. Always good to talk a little ball. Always look forward to Thursdays.
Yeah, for sure, man, for sure. And like I said, as we sit at this point in the week, about what, 50, I don't know, 54 hours or something like that away from kickoff, what have you. We've got Shane Beamer's call-in show tonight as we creep closer and closer to kick. Before JC, and I will say this, thank you so much as well for having me on your show this morning Inside the Gamecocks at 11:30. That was an absolute blast, as it always is. But before we look ahead, JC, to this weekend, let's first talk what happened against Georgia really briefly, right? 48-7. You and I talked last week this time. We set proper expectations going in the game. But I'll ask you this. Were you surprised at just how poorly the game went? 24-0 at halftime, 48-0 for the Gamecocks could even score. I mean, Georgia certainly showed, and I spent a lot of this time this week, giving Georgia credit. They're an elite. I picked them to go undefeated for a reason, but I feel like even the most realistic of Gamecock fans were a little surprised at just how brutal that game was on Saturday.
Yeah, I think to stay in that ball game, Chris, the Gamecocks needed to make some things happen early on offense, and 3 chances, obviously. One ended, I thought the first drive of the game, you come out, Rattler throws a strike to Stogner, you get a first down. There was a hole for Marshawn Lloyd. He only got 3 or 4 yards, but still that was more positive than you'd expect, first run of the game. And then lo and behold, here comes the Joyner play that's never worked in 16 games. Joyner is good. I think he's a player that needs to be used in a package, not a play. It's a package, not a play. Right. I guess there was a check he could have run it, but defensive coaches scout things like tendencies, right? And they usually do it over the summer. And you can bet Will Muschamp and Glenn Schumann and Kirby Smart, when they're sitting around in Athens over the summer watching ball, filling up their folders for the season, doing some pre-scouting, they look, well, when 5 comes in the game, when it wasn't the bowl game, he keeps it every single time. And I'm proud of DeCarrion for getting 3 yards in that situation. That was absolutely the worst time to run that. It was almost as egregious as the sequence of plays inside the 2 against Tennessee last year. In both those situations, it cost you a chance with early momentum. Now, were the Gamecocks going to score on that drive? I don't know. But all I know at that point was Rattler was settled in. He hit a pass. They were at the 43. That's not bad field position. So there's a chance. The other chance comes after the long pass to Bell. And Rattler threw an interception. That's on him, right? Not a good decision at all. But I think at this point, you got to kind of live with that sometimes, right? And then the infamous 3rd and 4th down sequence. I get it. Sometimes if you got 2 downs to call it, you may try to sneakily run a little run play. That just isn't the play I would have run. I mean, it's kind of wide, and he got bounced. Bill Smith got – and it's certainly not to a guy that hadn't gotten lathered up like Bill Smith. And then the unfortunate thing in the end zone caused him to just sit there and watch. And, so that pass was short to Brooks. So there are your 3 chances, right? And you don't score in any of those situations. Your chances of victory went from about like 8% to 1. The defense did not stop Georgia all day. I did think they did a good job in the first half of limiting big plays. But, you can't sit there and get bled to death, right, Chris? And that's what happened. That's what Georgia did to Carolina on defense. They just, it's first down, second down, third down, first down, second down, third down. They just operated like a machine. I was talking to a guy that, coached in the SEC on defense the other day, kind of just trying to figure it out. And, he didn't have any criticism of the defensive coaching. He said, but, what I've noticed is what you got to do sometimes, if I were them, I would take more chances. He's like, because you got to get them stopped one way or the other. You can't just sit there and let them get 3-4-4, 3-4-8, 3, that kind of thing. You look at the sequence of plays in this football game, and this has happened all year, and I don't understand it. I've never seen an offense work like this. One drive, it's pass heavy. One drive, it's run heavy. So you keep abandoning one or the other. You don't have balance drive to drive. And when you have balance, that keeps the defense off balance. Look at what Georgia did to Carolina with their offense. They kept Carolina's defense off balance. That and they're physical and talented and good. And on top of everything else, if you're playing the number one team in the country, as good as Georgia is, and then you get completely outcoached, what happened is going to happen. I still believe there's good players on this football team. I'm sure they were not too pleased with how things went down. So hopefully they rally here these next two games, the get well games, and take their chances on October 8th. But, something's got to give with this offense. I mean, we've been through 16 games now, and unless Carolina's playing an opponent, which very few SEC defenses are going to do this or let you do this, unless there's an opponent that Carolina could just line up and run over, like last year with Harris against Florida and North Carolina, and Auburn gave up a bunch of rushing yards to the Gamecocks. This offense goes nowhere, nowhere. And that's against everybody from Troy to Vandy to East Carolina to Missouri. So you hope, that big game we're all looking for happens this weekend against the statistically worst defense in the country. But you still have your doubts because heck, they played some bad defenses before and made them look like the 85 Bears.
JC, this goes beyond the Georgia game. What do you make of the slow starts? And it'd be different if it was just a game or two, but this is becoming a really disturbing trend, right? I mean, you were down 21-3 to Arkansas. Obviously what happened against Georgia. I mean, even Georgia State. And then you go back to last year and the slow starts you've had on the road. And I mean, am I looking too deep into it? Or do you think there's a real concern that slow starts is sort of just a characteristic trait of this football team and maybe more importantly, this coaching staff?
Yeah, I don't know what the answer is there. I can't put my finger on one thing. I just, I think against Georgia, it was just, the reason they got to a slow start is missed opportunities on offense, three drives. That's going to kill you every single time when you don't come away with points. Defensively, that's interesting because you think defenses would go out there and start quick. They're fired up, ready to go. They're not fatigued at that time. So you think they go out there and do it. I guess the defense started well against North Carolina. The bowl game was a big start. That was one of those where it was a big start, and then the Carolina was able to just run all over them and played really good defense in that football game. But I don't know what the answer is there. I mean, there's been times in the last 16 games where Carolina's had something good happen early. And then inevitably something else happens to make the totality of the start not good. I'll give you two examples. Missouri last year, you up 7-0 after, you commit a turnover, then you get a turnover, you up 7-0. Driving to score again and a fumble. And next thing you know, it's 17-7 Missouri. Clemson last year, Cam Smith's interception early, I thought was a potential momentum changer, but Clemson just overwhelmed you, and then you couldn't stop the run at all. So, I don't know. I don't know if it's mental. I don't know what they need to do to kind of get these guys starting a little quicker. Or it may just be that, the issues always rear their ugly head early. And then Carolina plays better late because at times they're out of the game and it doesn't matter anymore. So the other team sort of lets up. I don't understand through three games the slow start, especially Georgia State. That's an opener. Place is packed. You got every reason to go out there and play very, very well early, and you don't. So, I wish I had a better answer for that. I'll probably come up with something after we get off because I always do that. But right now, I'm kind of at a loss and, trying to think of what they could do. I would say, hey, in the bowl game, he got it to Jaheim, and he had two big plays early. Actually, three if you think about the run at the beginning. But heck, they went deep to Jaheim once, at least the other day. He did get a big play. So I don't know. I think overall, personnel uses on offense is baffling me. It's bothering me today. I don't. I understand comments when you make comments like, oh, we got a lot of good players, so sometimes people are going to have this stat, this game, and this stat, the other. I get that. But not having Juice Wells involved, and this is now a pattern where a player will have a big game around here on offense, and the next game he's benched, or not benched, but it doesn't even seem like he's part of the game plan. And that's happened over and happened to Juju McDowell last year. I mean, happened to Jaheim last year. So that's disturbing to me in a big way. I sort of thought coming away from the Georgia game that Juice was maybe bracketed, or no, he didn't do any of that. He just wasn't targeted. And to me, that guy's a stud. You got to get him the ball by any means necessary. Yeah. And you got to get Jaheim the ball. And you got to get Marshawn the ball. I mean, I know there's a lot of guys you need to get the ball to, and it's not going to be huge numbers every week, but that kind of comment to me is the type of comment that you should make when your offense is going up and down the field against everybody, and the share of the rock kind of thing. So that's been kind of making my blood boil for a little bit. But the fast starts and all that, or the slow starts, I don't know. I think that they would behoove themselves to get off to a fast start on Saturday night and then maintain that through the game.
Yeah, I mean, to your point, JC, I do agree with you, and it's been maddening for me as well that, you hear that and you understand it, like, hey, there's a lot of guys who can touch the football, I get it, but there's some guys that just need to touch it every week. Like, they need to, like, just flat out, they need to. Like, imagine saying that back in 2010, well, Marcus Lattimore had 25 carries this week. He only had 2 this week because, just sometimes other guys. It's like, no, that he needs to touch it every week. Like, he's one of our best players. You know what I mean? So I guess I would ask you, something that I don't feel like I've really talked about this week or asked anybody else, or nobody's asked me. There's a lot of issues with this offense. For this offense to get going, who do you think is the most important player? And I guess Spencer Rattler is the obvious answer, so maybe take him off the table. But in regards to playmaker, whether it be Wells, it be Van, it be Bell, Lloyd, Stogner, you go down the list. Who is the guy, do you think it's most important to get them going, that you think will at least start to get this offense in gear?
I can make a case for a lot of people, but I'll just leave the lack of touches for Juice Wells as shocking and bad and awful, and people need to look in the mirror about that. And I think Marshawn needs more of an opportunity to get going, and not, give him, if he has 7 carries, 4 of them come on the same drive because you're running run plays over and over, But I'm going to say Jaheim just because he's so versatile. I don't mind handing him the ball from scrimmage every now and then. I do think he needs to be a huge part of your passing game. The comment about him blocking well the other day, it was mind-blowing, I think Trey Kenyon can probably block. I think Nick Atkins could probably block, Jaheim was at his best last year when you split him out. And he can make things happen. And he just has, he's just been a guy that's popped up every now and then. So you get Jaheim going. I think that makes other teams kind of concerned because, here's a guy that can do it all. We don't know where he's lining up or where he's going or what he's going to do. And see, that opens up other things because it's all about, to me, who does the defense have to account for? Who scares them? Right. And when you take guys completely out of the game plan, or maybe it wasn't intentional, maybe they just didn't seem like they were part of the game plan, you're really not going to fool anybody. What that makes it is harder for you to call plays, because nobody's going to think anything of it, and there's nothing special. So, let's just go out here and play our game and let you guys screw it up. So I think that's the big concern. So if I had to choose one, and really you can make a case for all of them outside of Rattler, if I had to choose one, it'd probably be Bell.
Yeah, like you said, you can make a case for a lot of different guys. I do agree with you. I think Jaheim Bell, he should be the dude that I think is sort of the leader of this offense in regards to playmakers. And again, that's all those guys need to get going. But I do agree Bell is sort of that dude, that he needs to be that dude, if you will. Let's talk Spencer Rattler, though, JC. 2 touchdowns, 5 interceptions through 3 weeks. Again, give credit to the defense he played in Georgia. But there's no secret. Seven's got to step up his game. I mean, you can look at O-line, you can look at the scheme, what have you, but Seven's got to play better, bottom line.
Yeah, I actually thought the offensive line had probably their best game against Georgia. It wasn't as leaky. You know
Which
what I'm
is such a
saying?
Gamecock thing, right? To play to the
Yeah.
level of competition in that way. You know what I mean? It's I don't know. Continue.
Yeah, yeah, it is kind of a Gamecock thing there. But yeah, I thought they, I thought what they did with Wanamaker and Wanham was, uh, I thought that worked, to be quite frank. And then nothing against Jalen Nichols, because when they put Nichols in left tackle last year, that got them a little more solidified. But I think Wanamaker is probably one of their five best, and he needs to play. If you want to move him inside and bench somebody else, that's fine. I thought they were going to move Gwynn to center this offseason. It's told that, and they haven't. And so you're going to have to live with Douglas, and Douglas makes the calls and all that. So you don't, who do you sit down for Sean Lee? Do you do Gwynn? I mean, what do you do? But honestly, I think, I think that worked better than maybe what was anticipated. But you're absolutely right that Spencer Rattler has to play better. He's not playing well. He looks uncomfortable. Gets flushed out. Starts moving his feet, backpedaling a little too easy. I think he's sensing pressure that's not there, and that's not good for a quarterback. And I think he's forcing it. And honestly, Chris, you go out there and you read a lot, and these guys know Charlotte's defense isn't all that good, but you go out there and press, and you're focused on balling out and blowing somebody out rather than winning the game. We all know that can get you beat or get you in a dogfight when you just don't concentrate on playing your best. You concentrate on going and slaughtering the other football team. So I've seen that story before. So I think that he does need to play better. He needs to make better positions. They need to put him in better spots. Again, I've never seen anything like it where they'll just run the whole series, and then the next series it's all pass. And about the fourth time you do it, it becomes pretty obvious what you're going to do. Again, they have tendencies. They've scouted you, they've watched you on film, and that's what's unfortunate. I think running plays from Oklahoma's playbooks fine, but you gotta figure out how to call it, and when to call it against what. And so it's tough. It's heartbreaking almost to watch him struggle like that. But that's on him. That's on his coach. That's on the head coach. That's on everybody to get him right, get him going, because it's going to be a very, very long season and a long off season if he continues to play like he does.
I mean, JC, I would say that it's almost a guarantee he'll be back in Columbia next year if he keeps playing the way he is. I mean, right? I mean, I don't know how he could make the jump to the next level. I know he's got undeniable arm talent and, I mean, this and that, but I don't know how he could, in good conscience, make the jump to the next level if he has a season like he's on pace to have. You know what I mean?
I would think, though.
I know it's too early to project stuff like that, but because I tell people this, like, I want him to go to the next level because that's going to look good for us. It helps in recruiting that, hey, we took Rattler, got the most out of him. He got drafted. Like, I feel like him coming back, I mean, I hate to say it would be like worst case scenario. It'd be a terrible thing, but I just hate because I have to imagine it will be used against us negatively in recruiting. Like, look at South Carolina. They can't even develop a guy that is supposed to be this first rounder. Why would you want to go play quarterback there? That's what I'd be saying if I was the opponent.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I mean, and that's the thing. Look, I honestly, if things keep going like they're going, I don't see Spencer Rattler sticking. I think if he's a graduate, right, he's probably got a free. I don't know if what his academics are like, if he's close to graduating or not, but you got another free transfer if you're grad. Right. And I would, if he keeps struggling like that, at that point, probably going to be kind of like a Jake Bentley where he drops down a level, right, maybe to a northern Arizona. I mean, shoot, Arizona State's such a dumpster fire right now. He could probably go back home and play regardless. But, back out of the Pac-12, out of the SEC, that kind of thing to get his stock back up because, right now it's taking a beating and he's such a popular, well-known player. That's always a subject. Everybody, what's wrong with Spencer Rattler? always a subject. And it does. It looks bad for him. It looks bad for South Carolina, quite frankly, because this program has not had a quarterback drafted since Todd Ellis in the 1990 draft. He lasted, I think he played one preseason game for the Broncos, and Dan Reeves cut him. And that's it. I mean, Anthony Wright and Connor Shaw have started games in the NFL, made rosters, but they haven't had a quarterback drafted in 32 years, man. And this was supposed to be the next guy that takes a crack at it. And, if it keeps going like it's going, and hopefully it doesn't, then that's not going to happen again. And it's really going to look bad, on the part of the whole program along with Rattler.
JC, let's move to the defensive side really quickly as we start to shift our focus to this game against Charlotte. Because like you mentioned, this is a bit of these next two, what they should serve as is feel-good games, an opportunity for everybody to kind of get back on track, build some momentum, have some things to feel good about. And, the attention, the focus thus far at the three games has been obviously JC on the offense. It struggles, Marcus Satterfield. But the defense hasn't exactly been anything to write home about either. You have not surrendered less than 200 yards rushing in a ball game this season, and that includes the Week 1 game against Georgia State. Give credit to Arkansas and Georgia, big physical offensive lines. We knew that those were mismatches, but these next 2 weeks and this one this weekend, it really, and I know there's guys injured and maybe you'll be playing shorthanded. You look at Charlotte, they got a really good quarterback, and Chris Reynolds has done good things for them. But I think, JC, you could argue this weekend and this game and these next two are just as important for the defense as the offense because, last year, one of the biggest reasons, if not the reason you were able to get to bowl eligibility and win a bowl game is because you were able to lean on that defense. And I just fear, JC, that if things continue with the defense in a negative trend, that just might not be the case this year. What you want to see from the defense and, I feel like, and I don't want to speak for you, but I'm optimistic they can turn it around and be much better than we've seen thus far.
Well, I gave it 3 games, and then look, there's no, and I don't know if Boogie Huntley will be back this week or not. And I did think they missed him a bit. I know Georgia's coaches were not sad to see him out. Mm-hmm. But, and look, he's better than MJ Webb. That's just the bottom line. No offense to MJ, he plays hard. But I felt like Huntley was an upgrade over Jabari Ellis, and I think he's a definite upgrade over Webb. It needs to be in there. They need him. Yeah. But Pickens and Birch and Edmond and all those guys, that defensive line needs to just to go play their best, play like they're capable. They all got talent. They're all good. They need to start maximizing the talent they've got. This is a great game to start because Charlotte's not that big up front. I don't know if they're overly talented up front. You're going to be able to affect the passer at times. They need to go out and have big games, and they got to continue it. They will not face an offensive line as good as Arkansas or Georgia for the rest of the year unless something magically happens and Clemson's offensive line with all the talented guys they have gels before the end of November, which let's face it, from South Carolina's standpoint, that'll probably happen. But there's nobody that's looked as good as Arkansas and Georgia on the offensive line in the remaining 9 games. So there's an opportunity. At the same time, they need to, they need to step up because it's not just, we're getting blocked by these really good players. They're not winning their share of battles, et cetera, et cetera. Not getting a good pass rush, that kind of thing. Number 2, and I was talking, my defensive guy that I talked to said, if there's one criticism about Clayton White, it was, he needs to probably take more risks. And you kind of look at that game, the defense sort of died a slow death. They did a good job limiting big plays until the pass to Bowers, which you want to see good play calling, go watch Georgia. And watch how when B.J. Gibson trotted out there, they signaled in a play and they went right after him, didn't they? And that wasn't B.J.'s fault. Really tough position to be in going out there for an injured player. But, man, that was masterful by them. I think it's, in certain situations, especially when you got injuries and you just kind of need to go after them because and try to get off the field. Because if you get home, and that's that. Man, they score a touchdown. Well, your offense is getting the ball back, And so if there was any kind of criticism about how the defense is being called, I think White gets a little conservative at times, and that's not his D. If you look back at Western Kentucky, you look back at sort of the beginning of last year, his defense is based on timely pressures and exotic blitzes and alignments and things like that. And it just the bend but don't break. You're getting paper cutted to death. So if that's the only, I mean, I understand they're in a tough situation with all the injuries, but if I had two keys for the defense this weekend, it's get the D line going and maybe take some risks every now and then. If they score, they score because you're playing the team with allegedly the worst defense in the country. So, and look, complimentary football plays into this too, Chris. Maybe they don't think they can because they don't know that the offense can go score. So you're trying to hold them and keep them. It's okay if it's kind of like what Muschamp did his first year, where it's okay if you hold them to field goals because you can still win the game. And I get that. But unfortunately, with some of the teams Carolina plays, I think you do have to just risk it and hope for the best on offense.
Yeah, I mean, for sure. It's like you said, you get paper cut to death. The problem is you do eventually bleed to death.
yeah, it's still bleeding.
That's exactly what happened against Georgia. You look at this game, JC, and against Charlotte, and I've had fans tell me all week, you simply just can't win by enough. Right? And we talked earlier on your show this morning about, that a win's a win's a win. Really, it just doesn't apply here, right? I think this game is so important for. I mean, I look at it. You can tell me if I'm off base. I think you need 500 plus yards of offense. I think you need to score at minimum 40 points. I mean, at minimum, like you talked about this morning, your the team total being 39 and a half. So again, while you maybe can say you can't win by enough, and this one, it's not a nobody tuned into this season to walk up on Georgia State and Charlotte and SC State, what have you. These next 2 weeks are really, really important for this football team. Anything besides just a blowout win, anything specifically you want to see that maybe will make you start to feel like, okay, those were things I needed to see. If they can do that again against SC State, it'll make me feel even better that, maybe this team has responded the right way and can carry that over into the rest of the SEC slate and the season, if you will.
Yeah, I think they need balance on offense, and they need to break the tendencies they've been having, because like I said, and I probably need to go look at some play recap or drive recaps from the NFL. So I don't know if they do this in the NFL or not, but quite frankly, I'm tired of hearing about the NFL and this offense. I mean, this is all this talk about the NFL. It's like a mediocre community theater actor. I mean, yeah, I'm not going to say that. That'll end up coming to back. I'll give you that one in a couple of weeks. Let me come out. I need to hold my tongue on that one. That's something I told my buddies after the game. But I am tired of hearing about the NFL. But I don't know if that's maybe how they do it up there. But you got to have balance within a drive, to keep the defense off balance. So I want to see that. As far as yardage goes, boy, 500 would be great. I think if they're held below 400, there's serious problems. Unless the defense and special teams are just killing it, they don't have many possessions. Get your playmakers the ball. It's inexcusable not to get Antoine Wells the ball in a game. Juice Wells. I mean, I thought originally I was like, well, Georgia may have bracketed him or taken him out, and they covered guys pretty good. Georgia did. They're good at that, but they didn't do anything special for that kid. He still got the ball. He wasn't even in the game plan. And that's a troubling trend because we saw it last year. Jaheim would have a good game. The next game didn't even seem like they wanted to get the ball. Juju would have a good game like East Carolina. The next week, not a single touch against Georgia. And that happened over and over. It was weird. Just strange how that happened. And that's kind of got my blood boiling a little bit today. But I want to see personnel usage that makes sense. I'm not worried about the stats necessarily, but if you talk about how you got a lot of good players, and so the stats are going to be different every week, that's somebody that people that have good offenses say that. When you have a bad offense and it's bad, I mean, why would you? what are you doing? And that's, I'm really cool with anything Shane Beamer says to the media. I don't get into it, but I think that that was one comment that kind of puzzled me because I'm like, well, wait a minute, you know what? Guys have been disappearing for 2 years, game to game. Maybe that's like another tendency you notice, and maybe somebody needs to look into that.
Yeah, I mean, JC, I agree with you. I'm the same way. I take it all with a grain of salt in regards to the positive, the negative when it comes to the coach speak and the pressers. And I mean, it's going to be exactly that, coach speak. But I tell you, man, like it's tough for fans on a week in, week out basis when you lose by 41, and then you're hearing people saying how close we are, and it's like maybe not the time. Like maybe it's not the time to pull that card out. And then you got even players saying that we're 10 times better than we showed. I mean, that's fine. I hope you believe that. But damn it, you need to go show it. You need to go show it at some point. So what's so interesting, JC, about this entire conversation and everything and the mood of this week, the Gamecocks are where I think 98% of folks picked them to be, right? And that's the sort of the internal battle I've been having this morning is like, we're 1-2. I picked us to be 1-2. I just think, though, how it's looked is what's been so troubling. It's not all 1 and 2s are built equal, right? I mean, I had a buddy tell me, he's like, South Carolina might be the worst 1 and 2 team in the country because you look at Georgia State as well. I mean, it's just like they're not all built equally. And I know you would agree with that.
Absolutely. No, I don't think anybody would be sitting around gnashing their teeth about a 1 and 2 record. And it's not even so much, maybe even the margins of victory. It's the same. They have the same problems they had last season. And all off season, everybody's just told, oh, well, now they got Spencer Rattler. Last year they played 4 quarterbacks, which is a little bit misleading. I mean, Luke Doty started 4 straight games. Jason Brown started 4 straight games. His last game was his worst. They didn't get any better. So I don't know that quarterback changes had much to do with it. I mean, I honestly don't. And Jason Brown, who's the 3rd stringer, I thought played better than all the rest of them. So how was that an issue? If your 3rd stringer is your best quarterback, he doesn't get into the end. He leads you to what little success you have. How was the fact that, you had to change quarterbacks because guys kept getting hurt detrimental to your entire deal? I don't know. So, but that's what we were told. I was willing to buy it. And you have the same issues this year with a 5-star guy that has tremendous arm talent that does need to play better. But I think everybody on the coaching staff has to ask themselves, are you putting him in a position to succeed? And look, I understand. Great. You want to learn the pro style offense, how they do it in the NFL? Super. This is not, I said this during the Muschamp era because I thought what he was trying to do on defense did not work at South Carolina because it's very complex, what they do. And you have to have overwhelming talent and all this other stuff to run that Saban defense. I mean, look how it's failed at other spots. It's worked at Georgia. It's worked at Alabama. Where else? Failure at Tennessee, failure at Florida, failure at South Carolina. South Carolina needs a simple defense. They can go play fast. I think they got that now. So this is like that in reverse. It's like this is not an NFL training facility where everybody comes and they just kind of practice and go play games and, it didn't work out, but you're getting better. And by the time you get to the league, you'll be fine. It's not what this is for. It's a college football program. It's about winning and losing. I think the question needs to be asked, are you putting Spencer Rattler in the best position to go be a winner? That you possibly can. And you're right. The whole close comment, Jamie Bradford was just on our show. He made this great point. He said, yeah, it's about as close as you're going to get because you've heard that for 16 games. And I used the analogy last year. It's like, one little thing keeps screwing up. Well, why is that? Why is one little thing down? I don't know that that's the case with other offenses. I got missed a block, so here's the hot read. Here's this. And in college offenses, Chris, that are good have they're very simple to learn, but they also have contingency plans. In other words, okay, Ole Miss, for example, didn't have good blocking one year, and then they were like, well, what do we do? Well, then let's run this one play, and instead of pulling this guy, we're going to do this with this guy, and that'll compensate. Great coaches look at who they've got and then build a system. Bad coaches tend to want to force the issue. Even Steve Spurrier and Mike Leach, who have great proven systems, will change it up. And so, and I made the point. I was like, yeah, one little thing every single time, that shouldn't be happening. You know, you think about airline disasters, right? Over the years, since we've been alive, it's usually one little thing, and then it turns it into a disaster. And I always thought kind of the idea was to, you know, build the airplane better, you know, or make an airplane to where if one little thing fails, you're not killing 230 people. And that's kind of what this feels like now, you know, because you hear it all the time from them. Well, one little thing and we're good. Well, I mean, is that Marshawn Lloyd not breaking that final tackle for a big run? That's fine. I can live with that. Or is it some scheme thing that, like, you've designed this, you know, crazy far out thing that looks great on the chalkboard, but man, everybody's got to pull off really hard things, all 11 guys, to make it work. And unfortunately, you know, right now it appears to be the latter.
Yeah, to your point, JC, just moving off it, you know, I'm tired of hearing the NFL thing too, because it's like I'm a South.
I don't want to hear about
NFL.
Yeah,
I'm a South Carolina fan. I'm not an NFL fan. You know, and like
yeah,
I love seeing guys, you know, have success at the next level, like the Debos and everybody we put in the league. That's great, but like they will get coached when they get there. Let them do it. You don't need to do it. You know what I mean? Like I understand, but it's like let them go be NFL guys when they get to that point, but. Hard to get drafted when your team is shit. You know what I mean? Like,
I mean,
it's hard.
Check this out, Chris. I mean, you know, so I guess the idea was, well, this system's going to prepare you for the NFL better than Lincoln Riley's. Well, the quarterbacks Lincoln Riley sent to the NFL they haven't all been, I mean, bust. Like Kyler Murray's good. Jalen Hurts is starting for the Eagles. You know, even Baker Mayfield was, you know, rookie of the year way back when, right? Yeah. And so you're like, well, Lincoln Riley's put guys in the NFL quarterback, and nobody's complained up there, you know, about it. So, you know, there's a lot of guys that come from very simple college offenses that go up there and thrive. And yes, it's harder to do. I mean, but it's when you have 12 hours a day to work on it, right, and you're getting paid for it. And that's your job, you know. It's a little bit easier than when you have 2 hours a day and you have class and, you know, other things. So I don't want to hear about the NFL anymore either. I have a fantasy football team for the first time in 13 years that I have to keep up with. So I'll watch it every now and then. You know, I watch the playoffs and stuff, and it's fun. But you know, I'm a college guy, and this is a college football program, and they need to do what's going to work at this level. And maybe all of a sudden things will come together, and it will. Because, by God, it looks great on the chalkboard. And it's creative and all that. So people say that's not creative. He is, almost to a fault. But it doesn't transition in games because I think there's an execution issue because it's a little too complex for college ball. And then number two, I think there's a serious in-game play calling issue that, unfortunately, that type of thing is usually either you have it or you don't. People talk about the bowl game and how creative the play calling was, and it was for a couple of quarters. But Chris, this offense has never worked unless South Carolina is playing a team they can run at will against. Not just run, but run at will. Your North Carolina game. Auburn was kind of the closest thing to not running at will, but Carolina still pot up the rushing yards. Zaquandre White was awesome. You know, Florida, the Gamecocks ran all over them. Other than that, regardless of the opponent, even your Troy and Vandy and whoever else, if Carolina can't line up and just run simple run plays over and over with success, it's been very bad. So, you know, that's a red flag for me too.
JC, bringing the heat as always, man. I appreciate it. Last thing before I get you out of here, let's go out on a positive. The good news from Saturday is it sounds like despite the results, the Gamecocks are still in a good position with Nicholas Harbor, who was on campus and who was in the building. Just talk about what you've heard. It sounds like, again, from that visit that, you know, he really enjoyed themselves. And, or really enjoyed himself. And while some may think it's crazy to think, again, these prospects, they don't take into account necessarily the final result or what the scoreboard says. It sounds like the Gamecocks are still in really good position to land.
Yeah, they don't treat it like fans. They all think that when they get there, things are going to be different, right? Oh, when I get there, this won't happen. Nicholas Harbert and his family. Look, I want to say Taylor Edwards deserves a ton of credit. He's the director of player personnel, heads up recruiting. He did a fantastic job massaging everything, all the visitors, unofficially and officially. Did a great job getting the other kids from DC, Maryland down for unofficials. Because, you go into that game, even if things go a lot better than they did, you're probably taking an L. You know that. And so you're thinking, well, what are we going to do here? Credit Shane Beamer and the full-time on-field coaches too, because immediately after the game, as Beamer pointed out, they went to recruiting, quick into recruiting mode. Harbor was very impressed with the whole university's layout, especially the ESM, Everett Sports Marketing NIL situation. For a guy like him that's going to be in the Olympics, that's huge. His parents were impressed with the academics. South Carolina, if you kind of look at the grades, those academic performance or whatever with the SEC, South Carolina's as good as anybody in the league outside of Vandy with graduation rates and the honor roll and things like that. And that's a tribute to the Doty Academic Center and all that. They were impressed by that. It was the whole athletic department really deserves credit for making Nick Harbor's visit a success. Here's the thing. Michigan's this weekend. Michigan is kind of the lead dog before the Gamecocks kind of made a big push. So that after that visit, I think we're going to be able to kind of read a little more of the tea leaves, just because sometimes when you don't visit your previous favorite for a while, then you get back, you understand what you loved about it. Unfortunately, with it being a September visit, the weather in Ann Arbor is not going to be, it's going to be probably pretty pleasant. And then LSU is kind of a dark horse, I think, because of their track program and all that. So we'll see what happens. But right now, if football ended, the world ended, or time stood still and he was forced to make a decision, I think he picked South Carolina. But, you got 1, 2, maybe 3 more visits to survive and go from there. But I really like, the old saying, it went as well as it could have gone. It did. It went as well as it could have gone, even taking the result of the game out of it. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I don't think that hurt the Gamecocks. If they lose him to Michigan or LSU or whoever, it's because he simply preferred Michigan or LSU or whatever for a bunch of reasons, including academics, NIL, all of the above.
JC Shurburtt of the Big Spur. Check him out every single day, Monday through Friday, 11 to 1 on Inside the Gamecocks. JC, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you so much for bringing the heat today and taking your time to talk Gamecocks. And look forward to doing it again next week, my friend.
Hey, thanks, Chris. You guys be good. Appreciate it.